Today on our Wonderful Day in the Lord broadcast, we're looking at Psalm 3 through 5 as we are now just beginning this run through the scriptures, and we're looking at a chapter a day, reading, and also a psalm a day. And we're going to jump in here to three psalms that are in the early portion of this great book. In Psalm 3 through 5, David is troubled. And one of the reasons we turn to the Psalms so often is we also find many seasons of trouble and heartache and concern. And David is often there. And when he is there, we find that these words speak to our hearts as well as his, as he calls out on the Lord. He said in verse 2, "Many are saying of my soul, there's no deliverance for him in God." He's coming to a place where people are saying, you have no hope. There's no way you can get out of this. You're really in trouble here. But David calls out for the Lord many times. And the Lord is his refuge, as we will see. But as we look at that, we begin to see that as he struggled with his distress and his struggles, he was losing sleep. He mentions sleep on two different occasions. In Psalm 3, verse 5, I lay down and slept. And then over in we got 4:8, he says, "You alone, O Lord, makes me dwell in safety." And before that, he said, "In peace I will both lie down and sleep." So I think we get the indication here that he's struggling sleeping, and he is so thankful the Lord has given him enough peace to get some sleep. We all know that when we're deeply troubled, sleep is hard to come by. We have a hard time going to sleep. We wake up and our minds are racing as we think through whatever problems we might have, and sleep often flees. And when the Lord gives us the comfort to sleep, it's a great blessing during those times. He was distressed by what people were saying about him. That's often a problem. Look at Psalm 5 and verse 6, for example. "You destroy those who speak falsehood. The Lord abhors the man of bloodshed and deceit." And then in verse 9, he says, "There's nothing reliable in what they say. Their inward part is destruction itself. Their throat is an open grave. They flatter with their tongue." We find people apparently saying things about David that weren't true. They were doing their best to destroy him verbally. And of course, that's painful. We talk about the sticks and stones breaking our bones, but words will never harm us. But that's absolutely not true. When people are talking evil of us, we are deeply troubled by that. David himself, however, finds his refuge not in his vindication from the words of people. He finds his refuge in the Lord. In 3:3, "O Lord, you are a shield about me, my glory, and the one who lifts up my head." Verse 7, "Arise, O Lord, and save me, O my God." Verse 8, he says, "Salvation belongs to the Lord." Then we skip down to Psalm 4, "Answer me when I call, O God of my righteousness. You have relieved me in my distress. Be gracious to me and hear my prayer." In verse 8, we've already seen, "You alone, O Lord, make me to dwell in safety." In 5:1, he says, "Give ear to my words, O Lord. Consider my groaning." And in verse 11, "Let all who take refuge in you be glad. Let them sing for joy, that you may shelter them, that those who love your name may exalt in you." We find here David calling on God at the time of his great distress, and he finds his refuge in the Lord, not in his own thinking, not in his own self, not in putting to silence those people that are saying things about him. His refuge is in God. All these other things are movable. I mean, we can't control circumstances. We can't control people. We can't control what people say about us. But we can control who we turn to in our time of sorrow and distress. And David is turning to the Lord for refuge. And this is what the psalm is about. And the Lord, verse 3 says, "But you, O Lord, are a shield about me, my glory, and the one who lifts up my head." And so he's finding from the Lord this refuge. He finds peace in verse 8. He finds a loving kindness in chapter 5, verse 7. He finds gladness in 5:11. And so David is finding all these things in the Lord. Now here's the thing. These troubles will return, and we'll see them over and over as we go through the Psalms. It would be great if we could do like the fairy tales and we're done with this and we live happily ever after. But the truth is, life is troubling. and problems tend to come back on us. Maybe the same ones, maybe new ones. But there's going to be many, many times when our hearts are in distress, when we're struggling deeply within our own souls, when we're struggling to sleep, when peace is fled, many, many times. And yet the pattern that we find in the Psalms, and in these 3 Psalms, is to continually to go back to the Lord, calling on the Lord, seeking Him for refuge, finding in Him what we can find in nothing else. This will be the pattern we'll see as we work through the Psalms. And as you read the Psalms, you are looking perhaps at your struggles and your troubles. And as you do so, follow the pattern of the Psalms, follow the pattern of Scripture, where we deal with true issues. These are not false issues. These are real things, but we deal with them in a way that honors and pleases God, because now we're being drawn to Him as our hope and our strength and our peace and our refuge. And that is a great thing, because at the end of the day, our growth in Him and our rest in Him and our trust in Him is going to be so much more valuable than simply solving a problem. The Lord draws us to Himself in times of trouble, and we get the pattern of how to deal with that in the Psalms. Well, we'll be looking at going back to Genesis tomorrow, so I hope you're reading along with us so far.